Here's 15 times Michael Schumacher shocked the world. And even the biggest of Schumacher fans were shocked by his absolute brilliance as a driver. We cannot start this list without looking at how the 7-time champion came to be a Formula 1 driver. At our number 15 spot, we have to look at the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix. In a shocking turn of events, Jordan was left with a vacated seat. Their driver for the season, Bertrand Gachot, had been imprisoned for a road rage incident in London and could not make the race. Thanks to some convincing by Mercedes and a $150,000 fee, Eddie Jordan gave Michael his first shot. Schumacher did the unthinkable in his debut race, putting his Jordan on 7th during qualifying. In fact, this matched the team's best grid position for the season. However, during the race, Michael was struck with a clutch issue, which saw the German retire from the race. But things were already buzzing inside the paddock, and the German became hot property. This was the start of a massive rise for the future champ, which started as early as his first season when he was finally signed by Benetton after a court case that almost prevented him from doing so. So at number 14, we have to look at how he stunned the world in his first season. Schumacher raced the remainder of the season for Benetton and scored an impressive 4 points, finishing as high as 5th for the team. In fact, he stunned the world during the Italian Grand Prix, outdriving paddock regular and teammate Nelson Piquet. Piquet himself was even stunned by this result, as the former 3-time world champ rarely lost to a teammate. Michael saw his stock continue to climb inside the paddock, and even though Sauber was looking to sign the German, he remained at Benetton, where he's one of only a few to challenge the great Ayrton Senna at number 13 on our list. It was once again at the Belgian Grand Prix, where Schumacher in his conventional Benetton was gunning for the podium. Ahead of the German was the Brazilian in the McLaren, and through sheer perseverance, Michael managed to overtake the Brazilian and seal a 3rd place on the podium. But this wasn't the first time the two locked horns. During the 1992 season, Michael had already shown that he was willing to take on some of the big names. But at the end of the season, Schumacher finished 3rd in the championship, 3 points ahead of Senna. This would be one of the greatest rookie seasons at the time. In continuing his dominance, Schumacher eventually shifted his focus to winning the Drivers' Championship. And at number 12, we look at how Michael managed to win his first title. While the 1994 F1 season was marred by the death of the legendary Ayrton Senna, Michael would overcome all the emotions and even controversy surrounding his team to become a world champion. Schumacher and main title contender Damon Hill were locked in a scrap, which spanned numerous races, even leading to the German being disqualified at the British Grand Prix. However, Michael didn't let this stop him, and even with Hill trailing only by a single point, heading to the final race in Australia, Michael always seemed in control. It was only on lap 36, when Schumacher hit a guardrail and lost control, that Hill attempted an overtake. Schumacher careered into Hill, retiring both cars and handing the victory to the German. The next year, Michael successfully defended his title. In the process, he dominated, winning 9 of the 17 races and finishing on the podium no fewer than 11 times. It wasn't until the Belgian Grand Prix of 1995 that Schumacher again stunned the world to be our number 11 spot. You see, the Belgian GP is known for the tropical conditions that lead to wet races more often than not. This was the case in 1995. Schumacher, who had to start the race from 16th on the grid, made his way through the field, eventually finding himself in 2nd behind title rival Damon Hill. Eventually, Hill pitted for a fresh set of slicks, handing the race lead to Schumacher. As Hill pitted a second time for wet tyres, Michael chose to stay out, which turned out to be a great decision. As Hill caught up to the Benetton of Schumacher, the rain slowly subsided and the track changed to favour the slick tyres once again. Later in the race, both had to pit again for the wet tyres, but Schumacher maintained the lead, which was cemented after Hill was caught speeding in the pit lane. This would set the tone for Schumacher's career, of coming back through the field. And at number 10 on our list, we once again turn to the 1994 season, with Michael showing even a broken car is not enough to deter him. This time, it was at the Spanish Grand Prix, where Schumacher was in a commanding position for most of the race. However, 40 laps from the finish, his gearbox faltered and the German was left with only a 5th gear to use. This significantly reduced his ability in the slower parts of the circuit, but Schumacher continued. The German finished the race in second place when all was said and done, truly showing his ability in the process. But Michael was always known for bending the rules, and this would be seen at the 1998 British Grand Prix at number 9 on our list. Michael had been fighting Häkkinen for most of the season, but at the British Grand Prix, Schumacher received a stop-go penalty when he dangerously passed Alexander Wurz. While many drivers would immediately stop and take the penalty, Michael had something else planned, and he continued. As he took the final lap, Schumacher ducked into the pits instead of going over the finishing line, but he knew the finish line extended into the pits. Schumacher would take the stop-go penalty whilst winning the race at the same time. This led to significant rule changes. As cunning as Schumacher was, he never actually showed emotion. So, at number 8, we get a rare glimpse of this at the Italian Grand Prix. Michael was notorious in the paddock for his emotionless demeanour and often only showing aggression. However, the 200th Italian Grand Prix was one where Schumacher and Ferrari became the main protagonists. It wasn't until after the race that Schumacher equaled the record of Ayrton Senna, winning his 41st race, that the German broke down to tears in the post-race press conference. This was one of the first times Michael gave the world a glimpse of this unique side. As the German continued to dominate in 2002, he was just showing off his skill. At number 7, we look at how Schumacher wrapped up the title with 6 races to go. During the 2002 season, Ferrari was dominating. Schumacher had won 7 out of 10 races heading into the French Grand Prix. Schumacher started from second place on the grid, but quickly managed to surpass Montoya on the first lap. He dominated the race and won his 8th of the season. This also gave him his 4th world title, but the surprising part is that Michael didn't have to compete in the remaining size races and would still have been world champion. But aside from winning, Michael had to often come back from behind. And at number 6, we look at the 2000 F1 season. Heading into the Italian Grand Prix, the German didn't win a single race prior. While Michael started the race from the pole, he would dominate and continue this form for the rest of the season. Even with McLaren and Häkkinen bringing upgrades, the 8-point lead the Finn held was quickly wiped out. After losing both the 1998 and 1999 world titles to the McLaren outfit, it was only determination that allowed Schumacher and Ferrari to win the 2000 World Championship. As dominating as Michael had become, a new kid was on the block in Fernando Alonso, and even as Schumacher lost both in 2005 and 2006, our number 5 spot has to include his final race at Brazil in 2006 for Ferrari. Even with Alonso and Renault being in the lead, this final race had a lot going on. If Michael won and Alonso failed to score, the German would once again win the championship. However, Michael only started the race in 10th due to a qualifying issue, and a puncture on lap 9 sent the German to the back of the grid. But being the last race for Ferrari, and possibly in his career, Michael had something to prove. He blasted through the field, finishing 4th by the end of the race and 2nd in the championship. This was a truly heroic drive from the German. Now, before we get into the top 3, we need to look at the comeback of the century. At number 4, we look at Schumacher returning after breaking his tibia and fibula. You see, the 1999 F1 season left Schumacher in a position where he missed 6 races. The German snapped his tibia and fibula at Silverstone and was left on the sidelines. However, just 100 days later at the Malaysian Grand Prix, he returned to stun the world. In the unfamiliar position of being a number 2 driver, Schumacher toyed with his opponents as he helped teammate Eddie Irvine to the victory. Finishing in 2nd place, Michael proved just how good he was, not to forget the fact that he outqualified everyone the previous day by more than a second. At our number 3 spot, we once again return to 1996 and Schumacher having perhaps the best wet drive ever. With the 1996 Ferrari being labelled a piece of junk by Eddie Irvine, Schumacher had a mountain to climb ahead of himself. He didn't perform as well in the prior races, but at the Spanish Grand Prix, the German put his Ferrari 3rd on the grid. The following day, torrential rain was pelting down at Barcelona, and Michael would put on one of the best drives ever seen. By the end of it, he won the race by a whopping 45 seconds to his nearest rival Jean Alesi. This truly proved that the driver can make a difference. And at number 2, we look toward the future, when Michael took his final pole in 2012. After stunning the world with his return to F1, Michael would go on to put his Mercedes on pole at his final Monaco Grand Prix. This was one of the best drives from the former champion in years, but it would ultimately be taken away by the stewards due to an incident at the previous Grand Prix with Bruno Senna. It was magical seeing Schumacher once again be at his best. And at number 1, we have to look at the tragic incident that almost ended the life of the Formula 1 champion. On December the 29th, 2013, Michael and his son Mick were skiing at a French resort in the Alps. During the accident, Schumacher hit his head on one of the rocks, which caused significant brain trauma and led to numerous operations. Unfortunately, Michael has been out of the spotlight since, with a few updates occasionally trickling in from former manager Jean Todt. But Michael has always been regarded as one of the best, and only choosing 15 moments can be daunting, to say the least. But there are many more great moments in the world of F1, so make sure you check out some of the other videos on this channel to see how great F1 drivers truly are.